This is the Crew First Culture podcast. I want to thank Woods Forcible Entry Door Kits for sponsoring the program. Go check them out at Facebook at Woods Forcible Entry Door Kits or on Instagram at Woods Forcible Entry. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Crew First Culture podcast. My name is Jeremy, and as always, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. Yet again, I'm very excited to bring on today's guest. Today, I have Mr. Jim Moss with me. How are you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Looking forward to this. Been looking forward to it for a while. For the few people out there that may have not heard, Jim has got a book out, Firefighter Success, and just finished it a couple days ago. And we'll obviously get into that more, but really good book. Looking forward to talking with him some. And before we get started, because I sometimes forget to let you introduce yourself if I get going, but Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what it's the road's been to get you where you're at, and we'll get started.
Yeah. So, going way back, I started as an EMT and a paramedic with St. Louis City Fire Department on their EMS side. Was there for 3 years. And then for the last 13 years, I've been at Metro West Fire Protection District in St. Louis County, Missouri. Currently hold the rank of captain there. I've been an officer for probably about 7 years now. As you said, the author of Firefighter Success just came out with that in December of 2020, and that's doing well. Website is firefightersuccessbook.com. I'm also the co-author of Firefighter Functional Fitness, which came out in 2016. So definitely passionate about leadership, about fitness, mentorship, training, just like you. So I'm glad that we can discuss all those things today. And again, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Good deal. Like I said, I am excited about, and I mean, not just saying this because you're the guest here, but I really have enjoyed your book. But I just want to, or I've been looking forward to getting with you is just talking through some of these core value principles and all that, and which is basically, would you not say that's the core of this book?
Yeah, so it's called Firefighter Success 20 C's to Firefighter Excellence. And so it's all about at its core is giving firefighters of every level, every rank, every age. It's all about giving them 20 strong core principles for them to live their not only their professional lives by, but their personal lives by as well. So achieving excellence in both areas of life, whether you're a father or you're a mother, you're a husband and wife, whatever organization you're a part of. These are just 20 timeless core principles that everyone can apply to their lives to hopefully achieve excellence or at least strive for excellence in every area of life. So at its core, our root, its foundation, it's all about helping people lead themselves so they can achieve success in their own lives. But also, if they want to become a strong and successful leader, it will help them not only lead themselves, but lead others as well. So that's really the focus of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you kind of lead with that, but my first note here is right on those lines, and it's kind of throughout this conversation, I'm going to be comparing how I feel to what you're saying because I felt like if I was to write a book right now, it would literally be that book.
Oh, awesome.
It just lines up a lot with what I'm, how I feel. But kind of my first note is from the author section, and that's what you talk about is this isn't just for firefighters. This is for all aspects of life, just like you just said. And that's something that I really try to focus on. I put out a short podcast on Mondays, just kind of an introspection type thought or something that I personally need to get better at, or things like that. And that's kind of what I say on those is, this isn't just something that firefighters need to be doing better. It's something I need to be doing better as a parent, as a spouse, as wherever I'm at. And so that's really, really what I love about this book and about anything that's centered around those core values is they echo throughout life, not just firefighting.
Yeah, and I feel like, and I mentioned this in the from the author section you just talked about, is it's that so many times in the fire service as firefighters, and especially in the fire academy or wherever you receive your initial certification training, so many times we focus only on skills and knowledge and strategies and tactics, right? But we're not about other very important principles to help us be successful in the long haul of our careers. And there's really so much more than the skills, the strategies, and tactics to being a successful firefighter. And then you also touched on it. You said about those core principles and things that you personally want to work on. We all know if our personal lives are a mess or they're in disarray, it's only going to negatively affect our time as a firefighter, right? So we need to make sure that we have balance and that we have strong core principles inside and outside of the fire service as well.
Yeah, that's a good place to start our digging right there. Kind of what you just went into. You talked about, having a lot of chances, I guess you would say, to get those technical skills, those, the physical things that we do, or the maybe even handling things as far as like a command at, lots of those, what is that, hard skills, I guess you would say. But you don't have a lot of that soft skill stuff being taught. And I feel like it truly negatively affects you throughout your career, but that adds and adds and adds. And so when you get to the point of where you and I are as station officers, and you haven't truly gotten those lessons, truly got that training in those soft skills, that's when it really, really starts being evident that you need to get some better training in those areas. Do you kind of feel that same way, that it compounds as you gain?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I've known some of the most intelligent, bright, successful. I mean, they know everything about the skills and tactics and everything like that. Successful officers in the fire service, and I've seen them do a crash and burn because they didn't have a strong foundation of core principles and core values that they live by. They can force a door like no other. They can stretch a line, which are great skills, and every single firefighter needs to know the basics and hopefully strive to master the basics, right? That's just part of our
Yeah.
job. But our success in the fire service goes so far beyond those skills and didactic knowledge, like you were talking about. It goes so far beyond that. Because when we think about it, our whole time in the fire service is about serving others and putting others before our own needs and before our own wants and desires. So we're all supposed to be, and hopefully we're all striving to be servant leaders. We're all serving our public, our fellow firefighters. And if we're a leader or officer within our fire department, we better be living by example when it comes to servant leadership, right? Especially for our company, for our battalion. And if you're at the highest, the chief of the fire department, doing that for everybody within your fire department. So, yeah, like I said, it really all comes back to having that strong foundation that we all need, because our skills and strategies and tactics will only get us so far when it comes to excellence and success in the fire service.
Yeah, I've been a station officer, I think, for about 3.5 years. And that is something I have really, really been hit in the face with here. I would say probably the last year, as just almost like, hey, you are not really prepared for this role because it is so dynamic. You have to do, and I'm at a small station. I've only got 4 other people with me. And so, that only gets bigger and bigger as you get more personnel with you. But, even only having 4 people with me, it's so difficult to be able to reach each person in their own way, be able to inspire each person in their own way, and just to be able to deal with, the things that are going on in each of those people's lives. It is a struggle to truly be good, or at least for me, to feel like I am doing a good job in those areas.
And what it comes back to is two things: your time, which everybody's time is valuable, right? And your intentionality, right? Being very intentional with your time with those people, whether it's at a group level as a station officer, or it's at the individual level with each person. And like you said, everybody's individually different. Everybody has their own quirks and how they like to be related to or how they're motivated. So yeah, it's quite the challenge for officers at, I would say, every step in their journey, whether they're a company officer, whether they're a battalion chief, shift chief, and on up. You know,
Yeah.
relating to people is what we do as leaders. And as firefighters as well. So knowing how to do that with our time, like I said, it's all very valuable. We need to make sure that we're dividing it and investing in it, other than being intentional with it. We need to make sure we're investing our time wisely with our people to have the maximum impact.
So just a kind of a personal question here, since that's, since you brought that up, this is something that I'm kind of struggling with myself right now. And it's that time, you only have a certain amount of time at the station. And as an officer, as somebody in charge, a leader, whatever you want to call it, as Jocko says, you only have a limited amount of leadership capital. And so those are two things that you need to protect, obviously, and you need to use wisely. Do you do you find that there is a definite balance that you have to kind of achieve, as far as, okay, this person, I can't help them very much, so I need to maybe limit my time that I'm devoting to that person and maybe put a little bit more into this person that has a lot of potential and has a lot of drive and just needs a little push? Do you see a little bit of that kind of playing out, and really kind of trying to figure out how to weigh that?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head, because you alluded to, when you started to ask your question, you alluded to we only have so much time, right? So we need to make sure we prioritize and we find balance with our time and how we spend that. But you're right, is that not all of our people have the same desires. They don't have the same goals. So if I have a 30-year firefighter with me and I have a firefighter with 3 months on the job, right? They have different goals. And so that's one of the things I ask my crew when we start each year, or if I get a new person in the middle of the year, is what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Because I need to know those, because everybody has different goals. Right now, I'm currently blessed in the fact that I have a brand new firefighter on my crew. He's new to our organization. I have a firefighter who is aspiring to be a lieutenant, so he's going to be taking the lieutenant's test soon. And then I have a lieutenant on my crew who wants to become a captain. So for me, that's like the perfect mix of people wanting to
Yeah.
advance themselves and be successful, right? They have different goals. And so, like you said, with my leadership capital or my influence, I need to find out how to help them achieve their goals, right? And I'm going to do that in different ways. For the new guy, I'm really going to focus on, helping him know his policies, procedures, making sure he's strong as a paramedic, because that's how we start our people, is mainly on the ambulance, and then he's going to progress and be on the fire truck and the ambulance eventually. So not only making sure he's solid, has that solid foundation as a paramedic and doing great on all of his calls and his knowledge with EMS, but I'm also, once he gets released, or he can be in the what we call the truck rotation, he can be on the fire truck too, making sure that his firefighting skills and
Yeah.
knowledge are solid too along the way. So that's one thing for him. And then for my aspiring lieutenant, my firefighter who wants to make the jump to lieutenant test, making sure that he's, solid on all of his policies, procedures. He's getting prepared for the test. He's got his resume ready. He's got his letter of intent ready, that he's preparing for the interview. He's preparing for the tabletop and all the stuff we do within my own fire department. So helping him with that is really important. And then for my lieutenant who wants to become a captain, you know, bringing him along and making sure that he knows how to lead a crew when he is on his own, right? And
Yeah.
making sure that he's organizationally, he's ready to be that managing fire officer for that crew. So To me, I love it. I love the blend and the dynamic that I currently have on my crew. And I was telling my wife, I was like, it's the trifecta for me. It's what I want, and training and leading
Yeah.
and developing my people. So yeah, but back to your original question, it really is all about being intentional, um, prioritizing your time, and finding that balance with your people, and knowing how to motivate and lead and help them achieve their goals individually.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, and like I said, this is something that I am personally kind of learning and working through currently. And that was the struggle, is almost like a breaking point for me, because I don't want to feel like I'm giving up on somebody. I don't want to feel like I haven't given everything I can to get somebody to where maybe even they don't think they can get to. Does that, if that makes
Yeah.
sense?
Mhm.
And so it's just that cycle of, you just put in, you put in, you put in, you give everything you have to this person. And if that is not something they're wanting to do, if they aren't wanting to change, you're wasting all of that. And that could be going somewhere else. And that is something that's been a hard lesson for me to learn, because I have a hard time not feeling bad for that. But you are doing better things if you are being smarter with that time. And that's kind of, like I said, something I've been working through myself.
Right. And it comes back to, like we just said, knowing their goals, but also knowing what I ask my crew, what are your expectations for me? I
Yeah.
mean, I have expectations for you on my crew, but what are your expectations for me? And some of those answers were, one guy just wants to retire happy and healthy in a couple of years, right? And so he's almost, done with his fire service journey. And so his goals are a lot different than my new guy, my aspiring officer, and my lieutenant to captain. So yeah, you're right. Know what your people's goals are, and invest your time in them wisely. So we're not wasting our time, our leadership capital, as you said.
Yeah. So kind of getting, we're talking about the book basically, but getting back into it, and kind of like I said, I feel like I can define myself as a kind of a core value driven person. And that's how I try to be as a leader. That's how I try to be as a parent. And so obviously when I grab a book and it's literally about core values and how to lead through them, like I said, I probably after the first couple of chapters, I was like, gosh, dang it. If I was to write a book, like I said, this would be the book I'm writing. And almost, and I've heard a couple other people on your podcast and on, I think Corley Moore on the Scrap said, he's jealous of this book because of how it's laid out. But it's like, man, that's that's cool that I can get it. And it almost validates how I feel. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and
But
birds of the feather flock together, man. I
yeah,
mean, we have the same, mutual passions for excellence, and like Corley Moore says, defeating mediocrity and making sure we're not
yeah.
settling for that mediocrity, that status quo. And yeah, that's why we're here. We're here to encourage each other. And I guess I should say thank you that you're jealous that are sorry. I'm not sure, but
No.
I appreciate that.
No, I'm just joking. It's a very good book, and I have enjoyed it, and definitely will be one that you go back to. But I think where I want to make sure that I say this is something I love about it is your first C is coachable, and so really the kind of, I would say, the foundation that you use for that coachable is humility.
Mhm.
And why I'm bringing this up is because I feel like that is like the number one thing we have to have. We have to have humility, and just in the fire service in general, just generalizing it, I think we got to do a lot better job of being humble in so many areas. And so I love that you started out with that. And so, you know, I'll just kind of pick one little area. You give a little story, and I'm on page 30, but it's basically about Jake and a young lieutenant, and just a kind of a scenario that he went through, made a mistake. He owned up to his mistake, and others learn from it. And that's basically what you're saying is, it takes a lot of humility to say, hey, I didn't do the right thing here. I made a mistake here. I should have done better. And that not only helps you to learn, because you have to be humble to learn, you have to be humble to grow, but that also helps other people to learn from that mistake before they even have to make it themselves. And I think that is so, so huge, of just being humble to share that, to help other people not have to make those mistakes.
Yeah, and time again, I've only been in the fire service for, I would say 16 years. But time and time again, I have found that it's always the successful firefighters who want to learn more, who will admit to their mistakes, and it's always the unsuccessful firefighters that always say, "You can't teach me anything. I already know it all." Or they won't apologize. They won't say they're sorry for any mistake they made, or they won't own up to any mistake they've made. So I personally have made my fair share of mistakes. Everybody has, and it's all about learning from those and learning to get better, owning up to them, and taking ownership at every level. And that story about Jake, I mean, that's his name. He's a real firefighter. He's a real lieutenant, and uh, he gave me the permission to share his story, and so others could learn from it. And I'm glad that you brought that up. And that just is a testament to his, humility and willingness to learn and share his experience with others. So I want to give a shout out to him. But yeah, time and time again, it's so true, is that we need to be teachable, we need to be coachable, and that all starts with the foundation of humility.
So I've got, and this is something I literally just noticed this morning, just kind of making sure I had everything in order. So chapter 1 is coachable, and there's 20 C's. So chapter 20, the last one, is coach. So I just find it really interesting that you start off with being coachable is very important, being humble and all that. And then you bookend it with coaching, being a coach, being a teacher, an instructor, a mentor. Was there any intentionality there, or did that just kind of how it hashed out?
Oh, 100%, 100%. Everything's by design. And yeah,
Yeah.
so I spent, a good almost 2 years putting this together. So nothing was thrown together, and I obsessed over every single detail, and that was definitely one of them. And like you said, yeah, it starts with chapter called Coachable, so being humble and teachable at every level. But yes, it ends with the chapter Coach, and being a coach to firefighters, being a mentor and a leader and a trainer to other firefighters to help them be successful. Because, I'm really passionate about this, but so many times when other firefighters achieve success, or they have an accolade, or they get a promotion or whatever, so many times other firefighters are like, "Oh, do you see that he got that? He doesn't deserve that." Or, maybe you were in competition with that firefighter or that person. And so many times unsuccessful firefighters will not celebrate the success of others, and they'll
Yeah.
downplay it. Uh, but I'm here to say that successful firefighters will celebrate the successes of others. Maybe you don't think they're so deserving, but still, we need to make sure that we're celebrating other firefighter success, because it's not taking away from our success, right? If I have my lieutenant on my crew make captain, I'm happy for him, and if he were to go on and eventually be my battalion chief, I'm going to be happy for him, right? And I want to celebrate his success. Um, so that's one thing I really wanted to highlight in that chapter, is other than mentorship, other than coaching other firefighters as the culmination of our firefighter success journey, just celebrating others and celebrating other success, because it's a win-win-win all around for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I want to maybe hit on a little bit more with that chapter, we're still in chapter 20, the coach chapter. I feel like another area that we need to really get better at as the fire service is to maintain that mentality through being an officer. Being a captain, major, whatever your station officers are, and having that same mentality. Being a chief, being a battalion chief that is willing to go out to train with their people, to teach their people. I just don't think that's as common as it needs to be. I think it's so important especially at the station officer level, that you put that time into your people and be able to know these things so that you can teach, like you said, your new guy. I,
Hmm.
I want to be good enough at pulling hose that I can go teach my new guy.
Right.
And so talk to me about that. And do you kind of see this, what I'm talking about? How do you feel about
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, so it's interesting, and like every fire department is different, but every fire department is the same, right? So it's a different circus, same clowns, or different clowns, same circus.
Yeah.
However you say that, right? But every fire department's a little bit of the same. But like you said, I've always had a passion for mentorship, even because I've always had a passion for teaching and instructing. Even before I got in the fire service, I thought I was going to be a high school teacher, but I kind of shifted my direction and went towards being in the fire service. Um, but I've always been a teacher, and I've always been passionate about that. So once I got into the fire service, there were so many opportunities to be able to teach. Whether I had 1 year on the job or now that I'm a company officer, having a greater platform or a greater position and responsibility, like you said, to teach every firefighter what I know and also learn from them at the
Yeah.
same time, right? So for me, if you're in that leadership position of company officer, it's just a requirement. For me, it's a mandate that it's just part of the position, because as company officers, I say company officers are basically your crew's training officers.
Yeah.
So you're obviously training them in their skills and knowledge like that, but you're also hopefully being that coach, that mentor to them to help them achieve their goals, like we talked about earlier. If you're an officer, for me, that's a requirement. It's not an option,
Oh,
whatever officer level you're at. But it also applies to senior firefighters. It also applies to those who know more. I put out motivational what I call photo posters or whatever for social media all the time, as do you. And one of the things that I put out is, if you know more, it's your responsibility to teach. But if you know less, it's your responsibility to learn.
oh,
And what does that come back to? Humility, right? And
yeah.
so making sure, if we know more, let's pass it on. If we don't know as much, let's make sure we're learning it. And then that cycle repeats, and then we pass it on to the next generation of mentorship.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where my mind is. I'm obviously totally agree with everything you're saying. And you know, if you're an officer and you're lucky enough to have, a 20 plus year firefighter, yeah, obviously I hope that they are passing on everything that they've learned to the younger generation that's there. But I can't always count on having somebody that is in that mindset. If you're with a crew of people that aren't teachers, that aren't motivated, you don't have anybody else to count on. So that has to be you. And if you're somebody that's just kind of sat around through the good companies and just let them handle all the mentoring and the teaching, and then you get that crew, then you're in a bad shape, or you're in a bad spot because you haven't been prepared to be that teacher. And so again, I can't say it enough. It is so important that we be able to teach everything out there. And I've said it before. I'm not going to be pulling lines on scene. I'm not going to be forcing doors on scene. If I am, things might be messed up because there are a lot of other people that are doing that. But that doesn't mean that I can't know it well enough to be decent at it and to be able to teach it. And so I'm just that is another one of these things I really enjoy kind of spreading and trying to talk about, because we need to get better.
Yeah, like I said, take every opportunity to teach when you can, whether it's big or small, and take every opportunity to learn, whether it's big or small, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
teach and learn, teach and
yeah.
learn.
So another thing, and maybe I'm kind of approaching the book at a more of a kind of a officer's viewpoint, because that's what I am. And it says firefighter success, but I'm sure you will say that it's not just for firefighters. It's for anybody in the fire service. One of the coolest quotes I think I've ever heard is Scott Thompson says he's a firefighter with fire chief responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's a great mentality to have. He's still a firefighter. And so, you know, when I look through books like this, I'm obviously going to see it through my lens, but that's the great thing about these type of books is it's just across the board. It's not just for any certain rank, but I say that to bring up. So on page 202, you talk about kind of the camaraderie, building that community. And so the reason I want to bring this up is another kind of mindset that I see, and it kind of makes me cringe, is the mindset of soon as you get that promotion, soon as you become that officer, you have to distance yourself from everybody. You can't have relationships with anybody anymore. And you got to be, that kind of pillar of, whatever. I don't know. But I feel like if you don't build those relationships, you can't create a true community. You can't build respect and trust within your crew because you're just somebody that is putting themselves on a pedestal, and you don't have that. Do you kind of feel that that's on the right lines there?
Without a doubt, and you said it all together. And the big words that I wanted to pull out from what you said was respect and trust. And what you said before that was building relationships, because you have to, if you're going to lead your crew, you're going to have that community, that camaraderie, and you're going to be a cohesive, strong team. Yes, 100%. You absolutely have to have those relationships. Once you have those relationships, then you can build that trust. You can build that respect as well as their leader, right? You also have to be credible, right? And that's one of the chapters in the book as well. So you have to build your credibility, whether you're a firefighter or you're an officer. You have to have that credibility, especially as an officer, so your crew trusts you, right? And they
Yeah.
respect you. And again, it comes back to knowing your people, building those relationships, knowing their goals and helping them with their goals, investing your time. And those aren't easy things. I mean, those just kind of roll off our tongue right now while we're
Yeah.
talking about them, right? But it's all about taking action and being intentional with those things. And I would say, if you ask any one of my crew members right now, if someone who invests in them, someone who, if I'm an officer that wants to see them succeed, I would say that every single one of my crew members would say yes, without a doubt. So I'll give you their phone number so you can call and
Yeah.
verify. No, I'm just kidding.
Back check.
Yeah. Fact check. But yeah, with, like you said, if we are going to lead, if we're going to have that influence, if we're going to build that camaraderie with our crew, it starts with relationships, which eventually build respect and trust.
Yeah, and it seems like the mindset that leads towards that is always of, well, if you're too friendly with everybody, then they'll just walk all over you, or if you're too friendly with everybody, then you won't be able to hold them as accountable. And I think that's just false too, because if there is that mutual respect, you're probably not going to have as much coming back, to deal with, because they respect you. They want to do the best they can for you.
Right.
And, all that. Does that mean that 100% of the time you're not going to have to kind of check anybody or deal with problems? No, you're going to have to deal with things that come up. And okay, it might make it a little bit more complicated because you're closer with these people than the people that just kind of space themselves. But that's just part of being a leader. It's just part of that responsibility that we took on. And no, those times are not any fun.
Yeah, and it comes
But
back to
yeah,
those relationships, right?
yeah,
And being real with people, because people want a leader that's genuine.
yeah,
As you can kind of tell from my personality and the way I interact with you here, it's the same with other people outside of here. So you can kind of tell I'm more of an outgoing, energetic kind of personality, and that's the way I am with my crew. But we also know that we can have fun in the firehouse. We can bust each other up and cut each other up and have fun. But we also know when it's time to be serious, right?
oh
We
yeah,
also know when it's business time. It's business time, and we also know that there's going to be times where we have to follow rules and do things that we don't necessarily like. And if we don't follow those rules, we're going to be held accountable for that, myself included and others included. So it comes back to being real and being fair, being genuine. And like you said, you don't have to, once you become an officer, you don't have to be stoic and distance yourself and to the maximum. You don't have to go inside an office and close the door and all that stuff like that. Um, but there has to be, if you're building the right amount of respect, you're being genuine and you're building trust, then you shouldn't have to have your people, worry about whether you're buddy or you're, too stoic or too much of a authoritarian leader, if you will.
Yeah.
So there's a healthy balance in all that. So I think, and the other thing, I think every single person who goes into a leadership position, every firefighter who becomes an officer, they have to learn that for themselves. There's no other way beyond that. You have to,
Yeah.
no one can teach you that. You have to find where your balance is with all that. But when you have to hold someone accountable on your crew, if they're not falling in line or they're not reaching your expectations, meeting your expectations, then you have to have those tough conversations and be real with them. So there's balance in all of it.
Oh yeah.
And every fire officer, has to figure out what that is for themselves and their crew.
Yeah. I think that again, it's kind of where we started all this. That balance it just echoes through life. There's got to be a balance with everything. It seems like to me the opposite ends of the spectrum, the very far this way and the very far that way, there is not the best place to be on pretty
Right.
much anything.
Right.
You gotta find some of that middle ground on basically every topic of life. And
Yeah.
it's obviously with being a leader, being a fire, all that too.
Yep.
It's
It's
kind of
all
the
about
same.
balance.
So another one of your C's, and this is a big one for the fire service, is change. And so people like us, I feel like the more passionate I've gotten, the more I've wanted to learn and grow, the more frustrated I've gotten as well. It's almost like the two rise equally, because you see this is how I know things should be,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't do it. I can't change it. I don't have the ability or whatever. And so, we talk about some of that in there, and you have another section a little bit later that is basically you want an encouragement section, talking about it's not going to happen fast. You got to keep pushing. And that is definitely something I have seen here lately myself, and kind of speak to that. Is that something you have personally experienced quite a bit? I mean, you don't have to go into specific details, but have you had to endure a lot of that?
Oh, without a doubt. And I think all of us who are striving for positive change in our own fire departments and the fire service in general, if you are a leader who is trying to influence and strive for positive change, you are going to be criticized at every single level. And that's where it comes back to knowing yourself, having that conviction, knowing your core values and what your motivation is, what your goals are. If those are on point, first, and then if you're striving towards that positive change, then when those daggers come, they're being thrown at you, people are trying to stab you in the back, they're criticizing you for everything you do and every step you take, then you just brush that off, right? You stay on course, and you stay with your mission and what you're trying to accomplish. And you don't pay them any attention, because yes, if you're striving for change, you will be criticized at every level. So you need to make sure you got thick skin, and then sometimes have that introspection. If sometimes their criticism is true and honest, then take whatever's true and honest and make yourself better, or change a little bit about your course of action, what you're trying to change. And make sure that you're humble, like we said, you're humble enough to take whatever they're throwing at you, use what's good, and then throw away what's bad. So that chapter was a lot of fun, because first of all, I got to talk about how much has changed in the fire service, right?
Yeah.
Because it's constantly changing. So it was kind of fun, like from a historical perspective in the American fire service. And I use that to set up that the fire service is ever changing, and we need to make sure that we're adaptable to that change. And then not only are we adaptable, we're leading change too, right? So we're making sure we're having a positive influence every time we come to the firehouse, every time that we interact with our public, or whatever we do, we need to make sure that we're leading that change, not only responding to the change that the fire service has, but we're leading it as well. And I'm so glad you brought that up about the word of encouragement, because we will be criticized, but we got to stay strong and keep our heads high.
I think something that it's interesting to kind of add on to that, another, this is a Frank Viscuso quote, is, he listens to the critics. A lot of people say, I don't listen to him, whatever. He says he'll listen to him. He doesn't let them change who he is, but he takes that feedback. He takes that criticism. And because, like you said, there may be a little validity there. And so you can't just have the ego of saying, if somebody's going against me, they don't know, because I know what I'm doing. So that's a good topic.
Again, it comes back to balance, right? Balance in everything in life, right? Finding that balance to where you're so passionate and so convicted about your mission and what you want to change and what you want to influence, but also being realistic and making sure that we keep ourselves in check, and that, as Chief Viscuso also says, don't listen to your own praise too much. Make sure you listen to others' criticism sometimes too.
Yeah.
So it's all about balance.
So I gotta ask you a little bit of something here. You mentioned your pictures that you put out and post with some motivational stuff and things like that. So you had one on last week, I believe, and it was basically, so a little bit of a backstory. There's an incident that happened with Oklahoma City here a little while back, and an officer kind of dealing with some things, and not that I don't want to really get into that because neither one of us are involved in it, but you posted you put out a post that said, "Do the right thing, even if it means breaking some rules." And so that kind of really resonated with me. And so, I would not claim to be a rule breaker. I'm not somebody that is intentionally going to cause trouble. Absolutely not. But in my few years as an officer, I have seen a lot of things that make me want to follow what you're saying right here, because I feel like it's not right. There are reasons to break a few rules. Can you go into a little bit of your mindset behind that a little bit, and just kind of talk through that, just kind of see where you were at when you put that out?
Yeah. So one of the quotes that always has resonated with me, a couple quotes. The first one I'll share is that the right choice isn't always the popular choice, and the popular choice isn't always the right choice. So I know you're someone who speaks a lot to culture, right? And so what others deem as a culture of mediocrity, of laziness, of just meeting the minimum standard, that's what they see as right. That's what they believe is okay. But both you and I know that's not okay. That's not right. So what they believe is right, and what I believe is right. So you might be going against the grain, like we already talked about. If you're leading change, you might be going against the grain of mediocrity if you're trying to influence others and be a positive example to others, and you're going to face criticism for that. So, like I said, the right choice isn't always the popular choice, and the popular choice isn't always the right choice. So, don't always be living by others' rules, right? I know we got our rules and regulations within our own fire department. Yes, we should be following them. But it's also okay to question those rules, right? Maybe we have a policy or a procedure that's way outdated, right? Maybe it doesn't apply anymore. Maybe it's so backward that we're like, oh my gosh, we need to change this. Well, don't just let it sit there. Lead that change and have those discussions with whoever you need to have to correct those problems or correct those rules and regulations. The other quote that I also live by somewhat is it's better to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission, right? And we've all heard that before, right?
Oh yeah.
So I would rather be out in front with my passion to lead change. I would rather be out in front and ask for forgiveness later if I have to, than to ask for permission every single time, right? Because I mean, think about it within the scope of a working fire or the fire ground. Our battalion chiefs, or whoever the incident commander is, right? They don't want to have every single crew, every single company officer come to them and say, what do you want me to do? Right? They want to have these company officers that come up on the scene. They know their SOGs, they know their standard operating guidelines, and they want to put them in place, right? If a company pulls up on scene and they know that the roof needs to be vented, or they need to cut off the bars off the windows, or whatever it is, right? They say, the company officer comes up, hey chief, we'll take truck group, we'll take truck operations, and we're going to go vent the roof. And chief's like, oh yeah, good, that needs to be done, yeah, go for it. And so the incident commander can only see so much, but they need these company officers who are wanting to take the initiative to see the problem and fix the problem, right? And that can be done at the firefighter level too. Taking that initiative, seeing a problem, and solving it all on your own. That's not just an officer thing. That's an
Yeah.
everyone thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, going back to your original question, yeah, that was a specific post that I was posting about, a specific incident that I was posting about. Sometimes you got to break the rules to do the right thing. And I think that really comes back to what is the right thing, and living out with character, living out with integrity, and holding to your core values, and having that conviction to do so.
Yeah. I always I always ask three questions, and this is just kind of always in my mind. Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing it in the right way? And are
Hmm.
you doing it for the right reason?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And if you could literally sit there and answer yes to those three questions, what else do you have to have?
Yeah,
I'm sorry that it goes against whatever,
yeah,
but if I answer those three questions honestly and truly believe in those answers, man, I don't know what else to do. It's the right thing.
yeah.
So
The right thing is the right thing. Even if
yeah.
the wrong people says it's the wrong thing.
That's right. Kind of your example there, with the kind of finding things to initiate as a crew with your on-scene commander. That speaks a little bit of to micromanagement, and that's another thing you kind of touched on a little bit. And in their book it says, when we micromanage our people, we are expressing a lack of confidence in them. They will undoubtedly reciprocate a lack of confidence in us as their company officers. And that, man, micromanagement is another huge topic for me. I hate it. There's
Yeah,
not many more things that I hate more than micromanaging. And when I am being micromanaged, I feel like the person doing it to me is treating me like a kid that does not know how to do his job.
right.
Basically
Yep.
that's it. You're having to tell somebody every little thing, and that's exactly how you worded it right there. That is exactly how I feel. And so talk to me a little bit more about that. What benefits can we gain from micromanagement?
Right. Well, it really comes back to, yeah, it really comes back to our expectations, right?
Yeah.
So, communicating those expectations and making sure you trust your firefighters enough to carry out and live out those expectations on a daily basis. And if you give them a task, at the beginning of the day, and this is something I battle with personally, is I'm a very task oriented, organized type person. I make a lot of to-do lists. I make sure that I prioritize them in the order of importance, and I make sure that I am getting my tasks done as the day goes on. Well, someone else, another firefighter, might have the whole day to do it, right? But they might wait 4, 5, 6 hours until now to get that task done. I need to trust them to get that done in
Yeah.
their time if it's not an urgent issue, right? And so that might be my struggle, that, man, they should have done this 4 hours
Yeah.
ago, but I'm going to let them do it. And also trusting your people enough to let them fail, right? Making sure that every single step of the way, I'm not saying, hey, did you do this yet? Hey, did you do this yet? Hey, did you
Yeah.
do this yet? And like you said, I'm not micromanaging, I'm not prodding them, I'm not being overbearing with them. And so, yeah, it comes down to
Mhm.
trusting your people, and sometimes letting them fall short or fail, when it comes to doing those tasks. Like if we have a certain, um, training assignment, for, fire rescue one, or we use career cert for EMS. So making sure they can do that in their own time. And if they don't do it, then
Yeah.
you can hold them accountable, right?
Yeah.
Then you can do that and have that discussion of, hey, why didn't you do this? Let's get it done. And in the future, I don't want to have to ask you to do it. Make sure you do it on time. That's when you can have those conversations. But yeah, it comes back to trusting your people enough. And if you micromanage them, they're not going to trust you, and
Yeah.
they're going to lose respect for you.
Yeah. And that's kind of, going back to the balance once again. That's something I've had to. I'm somebody that's on the opposite end of the spectrum, kind of probably like you just described yourself a little bit. I'm probably too laid back, maybe. We have daily tasks that are it's in the policies, and that's what every Mondays or this, every Tuesdays or this.
Right.
I don't ever, some officers sit there and they go over it every morning. Okay, this is what we do on Mondays. Well, to me, it's like, come on. I mean, these people have been doing this for years. I shouldn't have to talk about this every day. And so I don't. And maybe I am too lenient, like I said, but that's the thing is I trust my people to do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And if it's 8 o'clock at night and I notice, well, something didn't get done, okay, I'll go kind of mention, hey guys, did you get so and so done? Oh no, I forgot about it. No, go run and
Yeah.
do it. It's not that big of a deal. Those are things that I I almost see those things as tools for empowerment.
Yeah.
If you're using that to empower them to to do things on their own, to kind of work on some leadership for themselves.
Yeah, and what that came back to, you being able to be laid back, is that your crew already knows the expectations, right? They've had them all along, and so they don't need to know that, for my fire department, we'll talk about daily chores. So Mondays are rolling hose, Mondays are cleaning the kitchen, doing a deep cleaning of the kitchen. Mondays are for this, for that. So they should know the expectations long before, but maybe they're new to your crew, maybe they're new to the fire department, and so
Yeah,
you need to say that to those individuals. But either way, whether you're, for me, a taskmaster, and I even like to write the daily agenda on our dry erase board in the kitchen, and my crew loves to mess with me and give me trouble about that, the to-dos and stuff like that. And I don't say when they have to be done, it's just I put them up there, and it does actually help refresh their memory,
yeah,
or they're like, oh yeah, I do need to get that done, thanks for writing that down, kind of thing. But it comes back to, either way, the crew knows the expectations, right?
yeah,
Whether it's the daily, the monthly, or for the year, right? And you could be like yourself, more laid back, and just kind of let it fly. And if your crew knows the expectations, they'll carry it out, right? And then for me, if I have a new guy, I need to make sure he knows those kind of things, those
yeah,
expectations, and I can stay a little bit more on top of him, and making sure he's carrying out those tasks and those expectations.
yeah, absolutely. So got through most of my notes of kind of some areas that I really wanted to kind of dig and maybe pick your brain a little bit more into. Something else I've heard you say on, I can't remember what podcast, but basically, you are an author of a book called Firefighter Success. Does that mean that you are the model for firefighter success?
Absolutely not, and I'm quite honest with that. And the from the author section in the beginning,
Yeah,
is that success is like fitness, right? Success is a journey, and we, as firefighters, as leaders, as company officers, whatever it is, we're always on a journey, right, to achieve excellence. There's not just one moment where you arrive and you're like, okay, I've achieved success.
yeah,
I've achieved excellence. Always a journey, and we should never feel like we have arrived or we're done, right? It's a continuous process, whether it's leadership, training, fitness, it's never ending. So
yeah,
I'm not going to say, just because I wrote the book on it, that I am the perfect example of everything contained in the book. Some of the things are my weaknesses. Like you said, you talked about before, when you talked about things you work on that you
yeah,
present on Mondays on your short snippets. So we're all works in progress. We're all striving, or we all should be striving, for excellence and success in the fire service. And I just wanted to put down what I believed would be the most essential qualities of successful firefighters. I could have added a couple more, but I wanted to keep it not right at 20, and keep it
yeah,
nice and neat. But yeah, so it's been great, and that's the other thing, is that I wrote this book, but I've made plenty of mistakes, and hopefully I've shared those mistakes and what I've learned from those mistakes within the book. And really it just comes back to being humble, being coachable, being teachable, so that we keep on striving for excellence in our own journeys.
Yeah, and that's obviously I was expecting that answer. I mean, I know you're not thinking of yourself as that
Right.
model, and that's a real struggle, and that's a struggle that I have had to fight through quite a bit. And I'm trying to be somebody that pushes out positivity. There's so much negativity in the world right now. I just feel like I need to be somebody that's fighting that, and
Yeah.
so I try that. I try my best to do that, but I don't have positive days every day. I have bad days. I have days where I am not in a great mood. I don't have a great attitude. And so I find myself thinking sometimes, man, I should not be doing this stuff. I am not the person to be doing this. I'm not a leader that has been a leader for a decade and has all this knowledge but that's where I'm at. That's what I have. So why not give what I have? And so I think to kind of wrap it up and get your opinion on this is for those people out there that have something to give that are just maybe coming up on roadblocks of telling themselves they're not good enough or they aren't really somebody that should be sharing it. What do you have to say for these people that need to really just take it to that next level, break out of your comfort zone and do something that you need to be doing?
Right, right. So much comes to mind when you just talked about that. And one of my favorite quotes that I also put in the book is a rising tide lifts all boats. So your message of positivity, my message of positivity, someone else's is only going to do good, right? And so many times people feel like they don't have something to offer. That's false. Everybody has something to offer in their own way. And so by sharing your message of positivity, of leadership, of wanting to advance, have a positive, crew first culture, right? Having that positive camaraderie, having making sure training's at the forefront. That's your own message and your own unique message, right? And you need to keep on sharing that. And my message, is different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We might share some of the same core principles, core values, and identify with some of the same things, but we need to share it in our own way. Whether we both have podcasts that we share. But if you're a firefighter and you only have a year on the job, but you got something to share, you don't necessarily have to have a podcast to do it. Do it
Yeah.
at your crew level. Do it with other firefighters in your own firehouse, in your own fire department. Everybody has something to share. And just because maybe you only have 1 year on the job, or you're not an officer, or you're this or that, everybody has something to share. And I want more in the army of firefighters who are wanting to impact and influence positive change in the fire service. We can't get enough. So if you got a positive message and it might be similar to someone else's, share it,
Yeah.
and make sure we're that rising tide, that, like I talked about, that rising tide is lifting all boats.
Yeah. You say in the book, be the change.
Yeah.
If you see something that you don't agree with, if you see something that needs to be better, if you have a message to give, then be that change.
The
And that
worst thing you can do is nothing.
well, it's easy to say and it's easy to think, hey, I've got something to share. But doing it, that's a whole nother level.
Oh yeah.
But like you said, it's doing anything is a lot better than doing nothing. So
Yep.
that's
Even
great.
if you fail, at least you
Yeah.
tried, and you probably learned from your failure, from your mistake, and try differently the next time.
Yeah, definitely. So, Jim, man, I appreciate having you on. Enjoyed the conversation for sure.
Yeah, me too.
We definitely don't want to miss out on you have the firefighter functional fitness book that you and is it Chief
Chief
Kerrigan, is that
Dan,
right?
yep, Chief
Yep.
Dan Kerrigan.
Want to mention that as well as your new podcast that you have out. I think you got what about 10, 11
Yeah,
episodes now?
yeah, 10 episodes.
Some great guests. Uh, really enjoying those episodes. I love you always start out with kind of what success looks like to each of your guests, and that is a question Scott Thompson, I think, first asked me months ago. And that is a very difficult question to answer if you haven't really sat down and thought about it. So, that and your book and everything else, it's really, really good food for thought to kind of nail down some of those thoughts.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thanks for sharing firefighter functional fitness. Still definitely passionate about fitness and sharing that message as well. But yeah, brother, thanks for having me on. And if people want to get the book, they can go to firefightersuccessbook.com. And I'm obviously on all different kinds of social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Handle is at Firefighter Success. And if you want signed copies, just purchase them directly from the website, or if a fire department wants to do a bulk order of 10 or more, we'll get you a discount. So just reach out to me.
Sounds great. Do you have any closing comments or anything that you'd like to discuss that we didn't hit on?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I really enjoyed our time together and everything we talked about. And just one last encouragement, again, to every firefighter who wants to be the positive change, go for it. And we'll raise the tide together. And I just want to leave everyone with that encouragement. And thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I appreciate your time. Look forward to what's to come in the future with you. Look forward to maybe working together and just making the fire service better. So thank you, and I appreciate it. Everybody out there, look forward to getting back with you on Monday. And until then, stay humble and do work. Thank you.